So this is the Sonos Roam. It's Sonos' latest ultra portable Bluetooth speaker that's meant to be either used at home or you can just chuck it into your backpack and take it on the go with you, either to the beach or to a camping trip. Now, even though the Roam is packed with a whole lot of smarts, personally for me it is very hard to justify getting this thing, and I can't help but feel that it's just been overhyped. Now, the main reason why the Sonos Roam is so hard for me to justify is its price to sound ratio. The Roam retails for $170 by itself, putting the Roam in the mid-size speaker pricing category. But with the Roam, you're not getting mid-size speaker sound quality. With the Roam, you're getting JBL Flip 5 or Sony XP23 sound quality, which can usually be had for around $100. The Roam's price premium is really because of its smarts. It has AirPlay 2 support, and it also supports both Alexa and Google Assistant. But if you really want to get the most out of AirPlay 2 and of your voice assistant of choice, then you're either going to have to always keep it connected, or you could spring for Sonos optional wireless charger, which retails for $50, which would mean that a fully featured Sonos Roam is going to run you $220. So even though it's cool and all that the Roam has a lot of smarts, for me, the Roam really underdelivers when it comes to sound and battery life for its price. So if you're looking for a small portable Bluetooth speaker, I'll leave some options down below. And if you're looking for a portable Bluetooth speaker and you've got a budget between $150 and $200, then I do recommend that you just go with the JBL Charge 5. Now, if you're still here, let's take a closer look at the Roam. Design-wise, the Roam is tiny. It's actually a little smaller than the JBL Flip 5, and it's absolutely dwarfed by both the Sony XP23 and JBL Charge 5. Now, durability-wise, the Roam is rocking an IP67 rating, meaning that it's both dustproof and waterproof, which nowadays is pretty standard for portable Bluetooth speakers. However, I do gotta point out that the Roam has a mostly plastic body. Now, there's nothing wrong with this, and it does feel and look premium, but this is a deviation from the norm because most portable Bluetooth speakers now have a mostly fabric wrap body, so that they can better stand up to constant abuse from bumps and scrapes. Whereas with the Roam's plastic body, I would expect it to be a scratch magnet if you really take it out a lot. So design-wise, the Roam is fine, and it's very small, and personally, I really like its honeycomb grille. But from a durability standpoint, I do think it's going to be a scratch and fingerprint magnet. But now let's talk about tech specs, and we're gonna have to start off with connectivity. Like I mentioned earlier, the Roam has AirPlay 2 support, which is great if you're an iPhone or Apple Power user, but it still has Bluetooth. But something that I really don't like about Sonos is that when you first get your new product, you either gotta sign into your Sonos account or you gotta create a Sonos account so that you can register your new product, in this case the Roam, before you can even use Bluetooth on it. Now, personally, I absolutely hate when manufacturers force you to create a new account to use your new product, because you don't really know exactly what information they're collecting from you in the background. And this is something that Bose used to do, but they recently stopped. Now, with that being said, like I mentioned a couple of times already, the Roam has AirPlay 2 support, which means that as long as this speaker is on the same Wi-Fi as your iPhone or any of your other Apple devices, then you can just stream music to it. However, just keep in mind, your AirPlay 2 connectivity is contingent on your home's Wi-Fi. So if you've got a weak or spotty Wi-Fi signal because you're still using your ISP's provided router, then you could have connection issues. Now, connectivity issues isn't a problem for me because I have a pretty sick ASUS AI mesh network with multiple access points around the house, but I do think it's something to look out for. So whether you're in an area of the house with spotty Wi-Fi, or if you're at the beach away from your home's Wi-Fi, or if you're just trying to share your speaker with a friend, then you can always just use Bluetooth. But nonetheless, the Roam is a Wi-Fi first speaker that works best with an iPhone, and Sonos really only wants you to use Bluetooth when you have to. Now, if you're an Android user, you can still stream to the Roam over Wi-Fi, but you gotta link your streaming service of choice to your Sonos account, which is a little annoying. So personally, I just connect to the Roam via Bluetooth when I'm using my Pixel 5, because it's just easier. And using the Roam with Bluetooth is just easier, especially if you're playing something that isn't supported by Sonos' app, like either YouTube or Patreon. So overall, if you want to get the best connectivity experience out of the Roam, you do want to use it with an Apple device, because then that way you won't be as reliant on Sonos' app like if you were using it with an Android device. And also keep in mind, you can only use the speaker wirelessly, because unfortunately it doesn't have an audio jack. Now, besides AirPlay 2 support, the Roam's Wi-Fi capabilities also allows it to be used as a smart speaker, and you can either use Google Assistant or Alexa. Hey Google, what is the current price of Bitcoin?
One Bitcoin is approximately $54,586.50.
Now, personally, I am rather indifferent about having a voice assistant on a portable Bluetooth speaker of this size because I never really use it. If I do need to use my voice assistant, I usually just end up using it on my phone. So, like I mentioned at the top of this video, with the Roam, you're really paying a premium because of all of its smarts. But if you want to get the most out of it and have it constantly connected to your Wi-Fi so that you can use it as a smart speaker, then you're going to have to constantly have it plugged in. Now, the Roam charges via a USB-C port as it should, and you get a USB-C to USB-A charging cable in the box. But if you do plan on keeping the Roam plugged in, then you're gonna have to supply your own charging brick, because unfortunately you don't get a charging brick in the box. Or you could go for the more elegant option and get Sonos' wireless charger that magnetically attaches itself to the speaker. But technically speaking, you can wirelessly charge the Roam with any Qi certified wireless charger, and you can use the Roam's wireless charger to charge any other Qi certified device. And personally, I do think it's pretty cool that Sonos isn't just using some proprietary wireless charging method. But regarding battery life, the Roam has an advertised battery life of 10 hours, which is a little below average because speakers of this size usually try to shoot for an advertised battery life of 12 hours, but we do have to take into account Wi-Fi here. But nonetheless, speakers that cost more than $150 usually try to shoot for an advertised battery life of 20 hours, like the Charge 5. And real-world use with the Roam playing at 80% volume, I'm getting about 5 hours of playback time. So if you are looking for a speaker to take on the go with you on the regular basis, the Roam wouldn't be my first pick. But now let's talk about actually listening to music with this speaker. Regarding speaker setups, the Roam has a single frontward-firing woofer and a single tweeter. Now, this is reminiscent to the JBL Charge 5, which I just reviewed, which has a 30-watt woofer, a 10-watt tweeter, and it has a pair of dual passive radiators that shoots out its sides. Now, the reason for having a woofer and tweeter setup on these speakers is because it helps with instrument separation, because the woofers handle the mids and the tweeters handle the highs. But let me just show you. So, like you may have just seen, the woofers handle the mids and the tweeters handle the highs. Except, the Charge 5 also has a pair of passive radiators that focuses on the bass. So, the Charge 5 not only sounds more open than the Roam, it also has a lot more bass to it. So, like I said at the beginning of this video, with the Roam, you're really paying a premium for its smarts and not so much for its sound. But still, for comparison's sake, the Roam speaker setup is very different from other speakers of the same size, like let's say the UE Boom 3 that's rocking a more traditional dual transducer and dual passive radiator setup. Now, before we jump into the sound test, just know that we're using my EQ settings, which you can adjust through Sonos's app. Out of the box, the Roam sounds super bright and flat, so I went in and raised the bass and lowered the treble. But also, the Roam is playing at max volume here, whereas the Boom 3 is playing at 90% volume, and the Charge 5 is just coasting here, playing at 80% volume.
If I should stay or be alone, won't you make up your mind? 'Cause I'm getting tired of overthinking every move you make, and I can help you decide who you're loving now, and how I'm not quite there somehow. My intuition says to give you up, but my heart can't easily let you go. I try to tell myself this isn't love, and I hate that I never really know if I should stay or be alone. I'm just waiting for the fire, but you won't even try to survive. You would rather keep it all inside, and I can help you decide who you're loving now, and how I'm not quite there somehow. My intuition says to give you up, but my heart can't easily let you go. But my heart can't easily let you go. I try to tell myself this isn't love, but I hate that I never really know if I should stay or be alone. If I should stay or be alone. If I should stay or be alone. I don't wanna be alone tonight. I'm just hoping that you'll be just right. And I hate that I never really know if I should stay or be alone.
So, like I mentioned earlier, with the Roam, you're mostly paying for its smarts and not so much for its sound. Because when compared to the JBL Charge 5, which is very similarly priced to the Roam, the Charge 5 has much better instrument separation to it, and it also has more physicality to its bass. Whereas, like I mentioned earlier, right out of the box, the Roam sounds very bright and flat, as in it puts an emphasis on the mids and highs, and its bass doesn't have all that much physicality to it. Now, having a brighter sound signature can sometimes be beneficial because it does bring out the vocalist, and a bright sound signature makes your speakers sound louder, which is good for outdoor use. But overall, the Sonos Roam doesn't sound too impressive considering its price tag. So if you're mainly concerned about sound and you've got the budget for it, I would recommend that you go with the Charge 5. The Charge 5 not only sounds better, it also gets louder. But even if we were to compare the Sonos Roam to other similarly priced speakers like the UE Boom 3, even though the Roam does have similar instrument separation, the Roam's bass is still flat and it doesn't get as loud. But finally, let's talk about speaker pairing protocols. If you already have multiple Sonos speakers or soundbars, then you can pair them up all together and have them play in sync. And if you have two Sonos Roam, then you can pair them together and have them play in left and right stereo mode. However, you can only pair your Sonos speakers together if they're all connected to the same Wi-Fi network. So let's say you already have a Sonos Move and you're planning on getting a Sonos Roam and pairing your two speakers together at the beach. Unless that beach has Wi-Fi, you're not going to be able to pair your two Sonos speakers together. And this is a really big drawback, especially if we were to compare to JBL's or UE's ecosystem, just to name a few, where you can pair your speakers together anywhere, no Wi-Fi required. So, with all that being said, for me, it's very hard to justify getting the Sonos Roam. I'll admit that the Sonos Roam is very smart because it has AirPlay 2 support, which is great if you're an Apple Power user, and it also has voice assistant support. But sound quality wise, this speaker is really lacking, especially for its $170 price tag. And sound does take priority over smarts. But even still, the Roam isn't the best speaker to take on the go with you because of its shorter battery life and due to its over-reliance on Wi-Fi. If you wanted to get multiple Sonos speakers together and get them playing either at the beach or on a campsite, you can't because you don't have Wi-Fi. So if you're currently looking for a speaker and you've got a budget between $150 to $200 and you're really concerned about sound, I highly recommend that you pick up the JBL Charge 5. Or if you're looking for a smaller speaker, then the JBL Flip 5, Sony XP23, and UE Boom 3 are all good options to consider as well. If you made it this far, I guess you enjoyed the video, so hit that like button and get subscribed. It helps out more than you realize. If you want to pick any of the products up mentioned in this video, those will be linked in the description down below, and you can also support the channel by checking out the merch store. But other than that, I'll catch you next time.